As runners, there are things we know we shouldn't do, so we don't do them. But then there's a grayer area of things we shouldn't do, but we probably do them. And often it's down to misunderstanding, sometimes it's stubbornness, but for the most part, these are things that once we know, we can adapt our training and lives and get the best out of our running. So here are 9 things that runners shouldn't do, but probably do.
One thing that too many runners shouldn't do, but they still do, is they try something new on race day. I mean, I'm literally in the middle of a race. So when I say something new, I mean anything new. These socks, worn them before. These shoes, worn them before. These clothes, worn them before. Everything I've already done in training, I'm not leaving it to the day because you never know what might happen. New shoes or new socks could easily cause you blisters or even worse, an injury. And this vest, worn it before. No, it doesn't chafe under my arms, no nipple chafing. All the clothes I'm wearing, I've worn many times before, so I know they work for me on race day. And even this gel, I am not relying on any gel on the course, any nutrition. I've had this gel 100 times. I know my stomach can take it. So again, it's not new. I'm not gonna have an upset stomach, hopefully.
Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is don't stand there in the race expo the day before the race, buy something and try it on race day. Give it a proper go in training first so that your hard work and training over the weeks and months can come out on race day and you don't ruin your race accidentally. Something we shouldn't do, but maybe don't even realise it, is have the mentality of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Which is to say, if it works for you now, don't change it. Of course we should change it. If people didn't take apart things that worked perfectly well and try to make them even better, we wouldn't have things like the smartphone or GoPro or most things actually. And if you look at running, maybe easy runs of 5 to 7 kilometers do work for you perfectly. But what if you added in an interval session on the track or some hill repeats on the trails or just a different training stimulus? Even if your training isn't broken and it's going well, what if it could go even better? Part of the joy of the running journey is the experimentation. So if it ain't broke, take it apart and put it back together even stronger. Now I'm going to speak from the heart on this one because something that I think we all shouldn't do but probably do to a certain extent is compare ourselves to others. And especially when you're a beginner, I think this is very relevant, that you come into the game and you start running and you see someone maybe 6 months or a year down the line, and it's very difficult not to look at them and think, oh, I want to be as good as them, or I want to get better quickly, I want to make that progress. But comparing yourself to anyone other than yourself is a bit of a false economy. You see, there's levels to this, and if you continually compare yourself to someone better, you'd have to go all the way to the top to like Eliud Kipchoge to be satisfied, because there is always going to be someone better than you. That's a fact. So why don't you tweak the mindset just a little bit, and instead of wanting to be like them or compare yourself to others, what about be inspired by them? And then suddenly, surrounding yourself with athletes better than you is to facilitate your own growth. You start to compare yourself to yourself and not them. You just need to be surrounded by better people to help you push yourself to your limit. So the question you should start asking yourself is, am I getting better in some way? Am I in some way trying to be a better person than the day before? And running is a very key part of that process for me.
One thing that runners shouldn't do, but they quite often do, and I have done myself, is to try and train through injury or illness. It's not worth it. When your training's going well and you're in a good rhythm with it, it can be really tempting to push through a little bit of illness or the beginnings of an illness or a body niggle. But actually, you could be putting yourself out of training and running for longer if you push on through. Let's take illness. Some people say if it's just in your head, like a head cold, you can carry on running. But actually, I'm of the opinion that it's better to rest. No one session is more important than your health, and if you're in running for a lifetime, there's no rush. And for injury, it can be a bit more trial and error and potentially a bit trickier to navigate. But what we do is when we're out running, if the pain is any more than 3 out of 10, stop it there, walk and get home, because that's likely to be more than just muscle soreness or tiredness. Ultimately, you know your body best. But just remember that keeping yourself healthy and in the game is way more important than any one session. So if you need to rest, do it, because it's all about consistency over time.
What about this? Put your hands up if you've done this. Underfueling. And there's a growing bank of evidence that says that underfueling, and particularly within a session, doesn't just lead to a poor performance in that session, but it has deeper ramifications long term. Take this example, you go into a hard interval session, you want to keep the quality high so you can get the same pace and effort in the last rep as you can the first rep. Now, the difference between fueling within that session and not fueling could be the difference between quality dropping off, but also technique not being able to hold it together, and therefore perhaps leading your way down the path to overuse injury. And if you start to look at some of the top level athletes now, then you'll see that even in their interval sessions, they're starting to fuel mid-session to keep that quality high and to ensure that technique and things like that don't drop off. But then we go to out of session fueling. Are you actually just eating enough and the right types of enough to make sure that you can train and keep away from injury and stay healthy? So if you're trying to do two things like lose weight and train, and you're cutting your diet in order to lose weight and training to lose weight, then perhaps you might not be putting enough back in to make sure the sessions are high quality. It just needs to be thought about, and I'm sure we've all been there from time to time. Are you giving the body the fuel it needs in order to perform the tasks that you want it to be able to perform? It's as simple as that.
Another thing that runners shouldn't do, but probably do a lot of the time in fact, is that they decide that it's quantity over quality when it comes to their running, because they're not making the progress that they want. And you could be thinking, well, what is quantity then? If you say it's all about quality, how much is quantity? And the answer is, it depends. It's very, very different based on you as a person, your previous running history. And I have made a completely different video about how many days a week you should run based on where you're at and the level of competition you're at. But I do think the quantity that you need to have good races is less than a lot of people think. I would say if you were to push me, sweet spot, 4 runs a week. But we've both trained for marathons on 3 runs a week, and I've also trained for a marathon on about 6 or 7 runs a week, and had good results on both. But you can definitely train for a marathon on 3 runs a week if you're smart with it. So if you're not seeing progress, and let's say you run 4 times a week, maybe consider not adding a 5th run, but changing one of those 4 runs to perhaps a punchier interval session, or learning a little bit more about fartlek or tempo or threshold. You know, there's lots of different types of sessions that if you add them into your week could completely change your experience. And that's why quality over quantity every time.
This one's always a hard one to talk about, but maybe we shouldn't think that running is going to cure all of our problems. I'm sure we've all got into running or gone out for a run at some points and thought it'll be better after a run, and more often than not, because of the endorphin release, it is. But the thing is, some people can get into running to think it is going to be the solution to weight loss. It is going to be the solution to problems with eating in general. It's going to be the solution to mental health issues. And whilst running can be the catalyst for change, it is not the change. It's just part of a whole thing that you need to do in order to try to be a better person every day. So can it help body image? Can it help self-esteem? Can it help weight control? Yeah, absolutely it can help. But it's not the cure, it's not the fix. And that's an important distinction. It's a kickstarter for sure, but it is not the solution alone. So just be a constant work in progress on yourself in every aspect, and use running as the vehicle to help facilitate that. Now here's one I know we shouldn't do, but put your hand up if you have. You stand on the start line, all of the hard work and training done, the race starts, and boom, you are running way too fast for how you trained. But it's okay, because you feel great, so you keep it up, even though you weren't hitting these paces in training for this distance of a race. What's the worst that could happen? Oh. The problem is, if you do taper well, if your training goes well, if you sleep well, eat well, etc., you're going to stand on the start line buzzing. The body is going to be primed and flooded with adrenaline, but certainly for the longer distances, we know it's a trap. The real trick is sticking to the plan, having discipline, running like you trained to run. There's something deeply satisfying about knowing what you have to do and then doing it. So the next time you feel good on the start line, remember, that's great and everything, but feeling good at the finish line, Now that's what we're after. One thing I do see a frightening amount of is runners, and in fact people doing any type of sport, stretching statically, as in standing still and stretching their muscles before they go and do the activity. You see, the fact is, if you're preparing for movement, then you need to be doing movement. This type of stretch we tend to do after we've done activities, like if you're playing football or running or whatever. So what is movement? It could be things as simple as leg swings, just to get my body moving, get me prepared. And it could be more complicated running style movements specific to running, like these types of running drills that I cannot believe I just coordinated while I was trying to talk to the camera. Almost impossible for someone like me. And of course, there's the classics, like the old walking lunge. So these are dynamic stretches. So here's the order I would do it. First of all, I'd go for a really gentle jog just to get the muscles a little bit warmer. Then I would consider doing dynamic stretches, which again is stretching whilst you're moving, and then move into drills, things that actually really specifically help your running form, like I just showed you back there. And there are other videos on this channel that delve into a bit more detail when it comes to drills. But the key message is static stretching, put it at the end after you've run, and even then it has limited evidence that it is beneficial, but for my mindset is beneficial, but it never goes before the run. I hope the information I've given you here some way helps you, and if it has, consider subscribing to the channel for more juicy knowledge. And if you like the video, you're definitely going to like this video, which started this whole series. It's the 10 things that runners should know but probably don't, and again, 10 handy hints that I hope help you on your journey. Thanks a lot for watching. See you Sunday.